You guys all ready or what? Got your notes or whatever the fuck we're talking about?
I got some words written down.
Yeah,
Cool.
Your resignation letter from the show.
Yeah, next to F1 highlights, I wrote, "Don't care."
Well, yeah, certainly. I mean, it was our fault. We made a mistake. Spotter said it was clear. I wasn't clear, and, I didn't want to tear my car up, tear his car up either. I respect everybody, and I demand respect. And, I apologized to the guy when he came over the car, explained to him what happened, and then he took it to another level when he started calling me an idiot and whatever else. And I don't appreciate that. I'm not going to take it. I told him how I feel. I called him out. He didn't show, and so, I'm good with it if he's good with it, but I'm not going to be disrespected by no means.
Yeah, I guess I had a dinner date at Applebee's last night that I didn't find out about until it was too late. It's a shame. Love their riblets and boneless wings, but...
All right, folks. Well, welcome back to Applebee's. We're back. We are refreshed, and we are excited to talk about Formula One, our favorite motorsport. It's Brien again with Ashley and Rob, as always. Folks, how we doing this week?
Oh, doing pretty good. Just a big Grand Prix weekend that we all watched together. How about you, True Love?
Yeah, just up at 1 a.m. the other night, all together.
You know what's fucked, though? Is I talk so much shit about that race, and there's no way I'm staying up for that. But do you know what finished up right before F1 started? It was that fucking Not Cars Tour race at Florence that I fell asleep on my couch trying to watch because it took like 9 hours to finish.
Yeah, I'll say that. So I mean, I guess we'll jump right into it because that's the main subject of this news segment. But yeah, that Saturday night, and technically it was Sunday morning for Rob and I, and I guess Ashley, it would have been Sunday morning too for
Tuesday afternoon. Georgia's a different time zone.
The Cars Tour, I had that on. There was also wrestling that night. So I was like up trying to pay attention and watch this shit, but I still nodded off. I woke up, I think, after the race had started, maybe 4 or 5 laps in, watched about a lap and a half, and I was like, that's enough, and just dozed back off. That was all I needed to see.
The Grand Prix?
Yeah, the Grand Prix, yeah. I don't even know. Well, I guess I know where to begin with this because yes, finally the long-awaited Las Vegas Grand Prix happened, and for an A1 level F1 hater such as myself, the weekend started off great with a manhole pothole cover thing popping off and ruin somebody. Whose car was it? Carlos Sainz from Ferrari. Ruining his car, and then F1.
Such peak Ferrari bad luck right there. That was fucking hilarious. Out of all the people for it to happen to, of course it was that fucking guy. And
then F1 had the balls to penalize this guy because he had to fix his car with parts that weren't part of the normal approved parts to fix. Whatever the fuck dumb rule they have.
It's like NASCAR. If you go to a backup or change the power unit or do a particular changes on the car, you do have to go to the back of the grid. They gave him a 10 grid place penalty for that, but NASCAR does a lot of the same shit though. So,
but how often is it a force of nature or whatever you want to call it like this, where it's not just something breaking?
I think the closest comparison as far as NASCAR is concerned that I can think of was, I want to say it was the Daytona 500 in 2014 or 15, and Casey Kane went down pit road to try and avoid an accident. It was a huge, huge wreck, and he dove onto pit road, and he got a pit road speeding penalty for it. And he's just like, what the fuck? So,
well, okay, that's fair.
I gotta appreciate them. If they're gonna have a rule, they fucking stick to it, but you would hope that there's some sort of change that would come out of that, because that was pretty insane, and a several $1 million mistake on their part. Though it's not the first time this shit has happened at street courses. I'm honestly surprised it didn't happen in Chicago. But it has happened at Monaco. It happened at Baku. It's happened in the past. It happened in that movie Driven. Sylvester Stallone and Jimmy Bly were sucking the manhole covers out of the ground at the big gala. So,
Well, yeah, that compare it to Chicago, I think that was one misconception that I had as a fan. I thought it was because of the weight of the cars. I didn't realize it was because of the suction of the air, the downforce. So
yeah, it can be both. Whatever, but yeah,
it is what it is. But speaking of wasting money, continuing on to the
did you gamble
debacle.
on this race?
No. There was zero game. I cashed out all of my winnings with Blaney. There was zero betting. I want no part of this bullshit. I'm talking more about the money wasted by the fans that got to see 8 whole minutes of action. Now,
ooh, yeah,
this is going to be. I think
tickets for that day.
I don't even know, but they were hundreds of dollars, and this is going to be really the start of my complaints with F1 as a sport that really just fucking hates its fans. It almost seems like. So
buckle in, folks.
People paid hundreds of dollars to watch practice. You know how much it fucking costs to watch NASCAR Cup Series practice? Usually like $15, if that. Half the time it's free. If you have a weekend ticket, you just go in there. People paid hundreds of dollars to watch cars take practice laps, and they didn't even get to fucking see that because of how late they started. That I don't know if it was. I feel like they said something about fire marshal, or maybe it was a union thing. But
they scrapped the session because they had to fix the track. So
yes,
and they extended the length of practice too, which they pushed the start up to like 2:30 in the morning or something like that.
But
and it was because it was a union thing with the security. They couldn't hold them there any longer because there was no security that was available. And I don't think Formula One wanted to pay out the overtime rate or whatever it was or something like that. So they kicked everybody out. There was no sound ordinance. It wasn't anything like that. It was purely a security issue. And unfortunately, the fans are the one who footed the bill for that, I guess.
Of course. Now, NASCAR, when stuff like this happens, like say, for instance, the race gets rained out. Well, of course, the tickets are good for the next day. If a fan, you can't come back to go to the rain-delayed race, most tracks you'll get a ticket for the next year's event. F1, you think maybe you get a refund or something like that? No. You got a $200 voucher for merchandise that was already marked up more than double what it usually was marked up. Physically done this, folks. They scratched out and rewrote price tags on all the merch at the tracks that was double what it originally was listed for.
You can buy half a
Sharpie.
Yeah, you can buy half a Red Bull t-shirt with $200. So
F1 didn't even apologize. They didn't even use the words "we're sorry for this happened." They literally just like, "Oh, this is what happens. Here's a voucher."
So that was the actual Grand Prix organizers themselves, not Formula One.
Whatever.
F1 apologized by handing out a penalty to Carlos Sainz, as the FIA is known to do.
Yeah. So, all this to say, I really don't understand how fans can tolerate this, and maybe it's just because it's still such a newly popular thing in America. All these fans, again, that don't go to other motorsports events and don't understand how, like, most other motorsports sanctioning bodies treat their fans and put on actual good shows for their audience. Fans are just okay with this, and they'll just deal with it. I don't fucking know, but between all this shit that happened at the track and then F1 themselves kind of almost hedging their bets with their viewership by, starting the race so late that, again, it started the next morning for half the country. And, again, this was
6 a.m. in the UK, so I don't understand either side of that.
Yeah, I feel like it was almost just, there was no winning. There was almost no time slot other than if you actually tried to book the race for the U.S. fans where the race actually was fucking happening. I mean, to me, would have made the most sense. I know part of it also was shutting down part of the streets or something for traffic in Vegas. But, again, when you've got miles of downtown shut off already, traffic's already fucked. You've already lost that battle. Like, just put on an event that makes sense.
Yeah, the start time definitely had me scratching my head because, again, I say I'm not going to stay up late to watch a race like that, even though I fucking did. Because you can't have a late model race in the South or a midget event in California without the A main rolling off at 14 a.m. or whatever. So
yeah, so for the very small faction of fans that were watching both the Cars Tour and F1, the crossover there was probably about 68 people.
Yeah.
You kind of blended one race into the other. So I guess that really is the majority of my gripes, because when it came to the actual race itself,
It's pretty good. Yeah.
that's what everybody says. Now, here's what I'll say about this first. It was a great race, but that sure as fuck was a NASCAR first turn, wasn't it? As far as I'm concerned, how many cars smashed into each other in the first turn? Like, you guys want to shit on, you F1 fans want to shit on NASCAR? Well, go check your boys. I know it's because of the cold tires and all that nonsense.
That's what I was gonna say. It's funny that race ended up being one of the better ones of the year, and it's amazing what happens when you take away grip from race cars. All of a sudden they get racy, and it gets interesting.
Yeah, I'll admit I watched the highlights, and I guess it seemed fine. It still, to me, wasn't even half as good as your average IndyCar race, but
Oh no, God no, of course not.
for F1 fans, I guess they got what they wanted, and it'll be happening again next year. And hopefully next year they solve all of these issues that they had all weekend. Again, I was hoping for more of a shit show. I got enough of a shit show Thursday and Friday though, so that at least entertained me.
You got your end of the bargain.
yeah, I got what I wanted out of it in a sense. So yeah, I don't know. I guess what else do you guys think about this?
I mean, it's easy to shit on Formula One and Liberty Media and all that for putting the spectacle first. Mm-hmm. And that was the sort of the crux of Max Verstappen's complaints, and he was running his fucking mouth all weekend, and it was awesome.
I mean, you kind of can do that when you win every race. What are they going to do?
Exactly. Can't take the championship away. It was sewn up 3 weeks ago, but. I agree with everything you had to say, and I think that's something that NASCAR should be taking a look at as they try and expand their footprint, and as they try and I don't want to say right the ship necessarily, but as they move forward into the next generation of whatever NASCAR is going to be, that they make sure that the on-track product and is the centerpiece of everything and not the show around it. And I think that was Max's big complaint. Was that, we have all this pomp and circumstance, and we got celebrities being shot out of cannons and fucking, laser Floyd happening and all that bullshit. But then, the track's coming apart. So, it's a Formula One race, so what should be the centerpiece of this whole thing is the actual Formula One race. Same with NASCAR, and, I think that, both NASCAR and F1 both got pretty lucky with these American street race experiments. Mm-hmm. Miami was good this year too for those standards. So I would hope that this is a sort of learning. What's the word I'm looking for? A teachable moment. That's the phrase I'm looking for. A teachable moment for these sanctioning bodies to realize that they really need to put the racing first and the spectacle. You can do whatever the fuck you want around it, but as long as you're putting your number one focus on the on-track action, then we're good to go. And I think that Formula One and NASCAR both got very, very lucky by having low grip conditions on their racetracks, courtesy of our boy JC, Jesus Christ, God, up top. Mr. Weatherman, It was pretty funny watching all those folks out there in the big parkas and shit, and it was like 50 degrees. It looked like a fucking Florida late model race. Everyone's all bundled up and shit, but...
Man, I'm telling you, cold in the South is a different cold. As someone who's lived in both weather conditions, whatever you want to call it, there is something about a 40-degree day when it's way more humid than it is in the Northeast that it chills you in a different way. It's weird.
Yes.
That is true.
Yeah.
True Love, do you have any notes about Formula One? I feel like you don't.
Well, as we mentioned earlier, in my notes, I wrote F1 highlights, don't care. So I was like, man, I'm going to do it. I'm going to stay up. I'm going to watch this race. I fell asleep on the couch at 10:30 that night.
Yeah, didn't even make it to pre-race.
So I woke up later, like 3 laps in, and I just didn't care. So I went to bed.
Yeah, that was definitely a highlight race for me, or a next day affair.
Yeah. I She didn't care. But my favorite thing with this has become my favorite thing with every F1 race I watch, is after the race, the cool down room that they do. Just seeing those drivers, like the top 3 drivers, fresh out of the car and being forced into a room alone together.
Great.
Yeah, but in this one, they forced them into the back of a luxury car, all sitting together.
Yeah, they're like in the back of a 3 Series.
Yeah. Took a little drive to the Bellagio, and that was so funny to me.
I wish they would stick NASCAR drivers in the same room like that. If there's one thing I would take from Formula One, it would be the podium and that lead up to the podium.
Yeah.
So good. Can you imagine just Denny Hamlin in there with whoever he's pissed off that week? Ross Chastain.
After just wrecking Kyle Larson.
Yeah, his crazy eyes, you know.
Well, I mean, this is the perfect. It's the perfect
segue
to bring up Denny, because Denny was at the race.
His ass, Missy Elliott pants and shit.
He was so Denny. Okay, so one thing that was mentioned in the media was how much more fashionable F1 fans are compared to NASCAR fans, and people dress up, and it's not just T-shirts and whatever that NASCAR fans and other motorsports.
Oh,
fans
and dress up they do.
Yeah, I mean, okay. I brought up this point on Twitter. You know, Denny Hamlin was there wearing jeans both nights that I'm sure were, you know, in the 3 to 4 figures each, but they both looked like dog shit. But at night one, he was wearing these awful jeans that were all patched up and just looked bad. And then the next night he was wearing jeans that had fucking chain link screen printed on them. They were like acid washed jeans with and again,
with snow pants.
It looked like fishnet stockings to me.
It did, yeah.
So here's my thing when it comes to fashion, and you know, I do not consider myself a fashionable guy, even though I sell vintage clothing. I wear the same fucking Levi's 511s and a T-shirt every day, all I wear. But in saying that, just because something is expensive and has like a designer name on it doesn't mean it's good looking, doesn't mean it's fashionable. That just means you have the money to buy stupid shit that other people can't. Like Balenciaga clothing is some of the ugliest garments I've ever seen in my life, but people pay thousands of dollars to wear fucking stupid, terry cloth, towel print fucking skirts and, you know, shoes that looked like they were made in 1992. Like, just because shit is expensive and fashionable doesn't mean it's actually good looking. Yeah, and Denny was the prime example of this.
Yeah, that's not his name. Use his proper name.
Dennis.
It's Marshmallow
Dennis.
James.
Marshmallow James. Was that Jenna Fryer who said that on Twitter? Marshmallow James. I think this is a prime example of. I don't mean to like body shame or make fun of someone's appearance, but we're already halfway into this, and I'm going to take a shot at Denny here. When Lewis Hamilton shows up looking ridiculous, and it looks kind of slick still, that's because he's a fit, good-looking, like model-type guy, right? He's perfectly in shape. He's built. It's custom made for him. Those clothes were probably designed for him. He's got an eye for it. Dennis just looks like he manages a Best Buy, and now he's got these fucking weird-ass pants on. It just doesn't look right. He needs to. I don't think anyone's helping him get dressed. I think he's picking it out himself. But maybe you should talk to Lewis about getting the fit done right or something.
So go look back at Denny's early years in NASCAR. Look at that boy.
Please look at those pictures. Yeah.
Look at that boy and see where he's at now. And just that is a completely different human being. That money and I'll say quote unquote fame, because he's Denny Hamlin. He's not actually that famous. He's NASCAR famous, which is its own thing, but he's also friends with Michael Jordan now, and having that association will help turn you into.
You've never seen MJ out there looking like an idiot like that. He's a super.
Oh, right? No.
Am I wrong?
MJ had some fits back in the day. Yeah. He had some moments. Like I'm sure you've all seen those pictures of Hulk Hogan wearing Jncos. MJ had a couple of those moments too. You gotta look for them, but they're out there. So.
The 90s were hard on all of us.
Yeah, it was a transitional period for sure. Yeah. He who hath not worn Jncos cast the first stone. Or cast the first stonewash, if I want to make that a pun.
Oh my God.
There you go. So I feel like that wraps up the F1 nonsense. We
Almost.
What else we got?
Well, there was that stray tweet that came out from like some Vegas Twitter account, a non-racing related account, indicating that maybe the Formula One Grand Prix in Vegas next year will be moved up to October to a different date.
Oh, yes.
And I think it was the 18th to the 20th, which also happens to be the same weekend as the NASCAR playoff weekend in Vegas.
Of course.
Which would be, I don't know if I read this as sort of a let's make Vegas the motorsports capital of the world for a single weekend. Because you ostensibly could go to both races, and if it was affordable, it'd be amazing to do that. Can you imagine that shit? Seeing both a Cup race and a Formula One race in the same day? That's never been done before, and it's impossible to pull off pretty much anywhere else. Like, it'd be fucking awesome if you could do it. Too bad it would cost, fucking $400,000 to do. So I don't know if it's that or if it's them trying to take it to NASCAR in their own backyard.
That's what it feels like to me.
I feel, knowing Liberty, that's probably what it is, but I guess I just kind of shared my opinion on it. That's something I'd love to do if it was affordable, but what do you guys think?
I mean, if it was affordable, that would be a bucket list item just to say that you did it.
Can you imagine rolling out of Andy Newsom's tent in the infield at Vegas and just heading on down to Vegas to ride an escalator to watch Formula One cars?
Yeah.
Big old slab of Spam and a plastic sack.
With your $135 shoey cocktail that they're selling.
Oh,
the only way that sounds fun to me is if the F1 portion of the day is a complete escapade, fiasco, wild goose chase to fucking get into chaos. Like, I would not want to go there just to try to watch fucking cars on an escalator. I'd have to get into some weird shit for it to be worth my time, because I think I've made my feelings known about F1 at this point. So
yeah, just the spectacle of seeing it. I don't even need to see the Grand Prix necessarily, but it would be fucking sick if that was an affordable option. Or even if, I don't even care if it's still expensive, but just like I would pay good money for that experience. But like,
Rob,
when practice one is already out of my tip-top price range, that says a lot.
I think I forget the exact price of what the practice ticket was, but I do know that just the practice ticket alone was more expensive than any NASCAR race ticket I've ever bought in my life, including the multiple Daytona 500s I've been to.
I want to say it was a couple $100, like $199 or something like that. Yeah.
Never spent more than like $150 on a Daytona ticket. That's the most I've ever spent. So just for practice.
Well, there's North Wilkesboro, but that was like a whole weekend.
Yeah, but that was a whole weekend. That doesn't count. That's not just practice.
Yeah.
Plus, Rob, you failed to mention the third event going on in that potential weekend, the When We Were Young Fest.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Which, if for all you fucking emo kids out there, I'm sure there are some F1 fans that are also emo kids.
Dude,
I know that for a fact, actually.
For sure.
What's the new metal one? Sick World? Is that it?
Sick Sad
New
World, I
Sick,
think.
Whatever.
Sick New World, that's it.
Yeah. Sick Sad World's
World.
that's the show on Daria.
Yes.
The greatest fictional television show of all time. If it was the same weekend as the New Metal Festival, I don't even fucking care. I'm taking a mortgage out in the house. I'm going.
I would have a little more inspiration if it was the New Metal Festival.
I can go see fucking Fear Factory on the same day as Formula One and Kyle Larson winning at Vegas, then yeah, let's go, baby. Let's have a good time.
Jncos for everyone that weekend.
There you go.
Think of all the nips you can sneak in those Jncos too into the Formula One event. Like,
oh God, so many.
Cans of Spam on one side, 99 bananas on the other.
They're starting to sound functional.
Yeah. This weekend's really growing on me.
Yeah, see, it's a good idea. It's Vegas. Go gamble a little bit, have a good time.
Yeah.
But it's not the New Metal Fest. It's the emo one, and it's not the good emo either. I don't really want to see any of those bands. I don't think.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Okay, so that I think finally wraps up our F1 talk. So what else happened this past weekend? Kyle Larson won some midget races. There's a fucking shock.
He won all of them. Yeah.
Yep.
The USAC West Coast Swing is happening right now. They were where were they at? Bakersfield earlier in the week. Kyle Larson won that over Logan Seavey, and then Placerville. That's it. Wow. Guess I need to drink or something because I'm like I can't read my notes. Placerville, California.
The earliest we've recorded.
That's true. Cal Larson won the Hangtown 100 again. over Logan Seavey. Caught a few cautions at the right time, and that worked out well for him. Never seen that guy have more fun in a fucking race car. Just talking about how much he loves midgets, and that's how it's pretty much his favorite type of racing, and how enjoyable it is, and how much better the action is. And I got to be honest, I pretty much agree with them. So, but it was cool to see him. Short track, and particularly midget Kyle Larson, is a completely different Kyle Larson you see at NASCAR. It's kind of funny. It looks like he's very much not having that good of a time on the Cup side. But he looks like a kid in a candy store at a midget, so it's always fun to see that. A lot of torn up race cars at Placerville. I don't know if you guys did you watch any of the highlights from that? Ever watched a race there?
No.
I have in the past, but
it's like they just carved the racetrack out of a fucking quarry or something, because the turn 3 wall is just like a 10-foot tall like dirt mound. It's sweet.
That's cool.
But yeah, Taylor Raymer got caught up in that. One too many buzz balls and sent it off in the ditch. Lots of children pulling these fucking crazy fuck you sliders, which is the state of midget racing these days. Just send it in there and hope that there's 4 tires to keep you from going into the space on the other side of it. But it was a great race. Good time. Thomas Meserol pretty much bent his car in half twice. So let's go donate some money to that guy, because not going so good so far. And they'll be at the in Ventura on Friday night after Thanksgiving for the Turkey Night Grand Prix. Is this the short track septic tank? I guess it is. We're already in it.
Yes, it is.
Fucking A.
dive on in there.
Yeah. Chris Madden won the Blue Gray 100 at Cherokee. That was a fun show I didn't get to watch since I don't have an XR subscription, but I read all about it on the internet. So congrats to Smokey for that one. Jonathan Davenport celebrated his 40th birthday over the weekend. By the way, our buddy Kyle Armstrong, friend of the program, was at the birthday party at the Dirty Dollar Ranch and sent me some photos. This guy has such a sick fucking setup. All you got to do is just win a couple $1 million races, and then you can have a sick bar like this guy. I'll send you guys photos of it. It's fucking awesome. But apparently they had a good time. I did not know Jonathan Davenport was 40.
Well, I didn't know BJ McLeod was also 40, which means they're both younger than me, which that feels weird.
Looking pretty good, Brien. You know?
I'll take it. Yeah.
And one more thing.
He's growing out his hair for the emo fest next year.
He is. Oh, man. If it was the New Metal Fest, you absolutely know that would be true. But one more thing before we move on, I do want to shout out, of course, Ken Squier was a big influence on everybody, and we're going to talk about Ken a little bit later on in the show here. But another legend passed away over the weekend, Paul Call. Do you guys know who he is?
Yeah.
He was the
Wilkesboro.
Yeah, he was the groundskeeper at Wilkesboro. He passed away over the weekend. I think he was 88 years old. If you ever snuck into the place and got to meet him, he was either really nice or didn't want to see you. But
There's no in between. It was.
yeah, it was either come on in or get the fuck out with him.
Yeah.
But just an absolute legend in the county. Of course, a deep tradition of moonshining, and his family's been in that county for, God, as long as it's been a county, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
And they still have a huge influence on the surrounding area and involvement with the racetrack and everything. So, but Paul was a legend, and you know, for every Ken Squier out there that everyone knows about, there is a guy like Paul who also had a lasting impact and left a crazy legacy in this patchwork of motorsports that we all love to be a part of. So I'm going to raise a little glass up to Paul Call here. I got to meet one of his grandkids the one time he went there, and he was cool as shit. That was right when they were getting the distillery up and running, and they've managed to turn that into quite the operation. Unfortunately, I don't
put
have
two
any.
and two together that was the same deal.
Yeah, same family, same folks, direct lineage, and but yeah, North Wilkesboro definitely won't be the same without that guy being there physically. But Lord knows his spirit is probably hanging around the racetrack and will be for as long as there's a track there.
Yeah.
So, cheers.
Well, I guess so. We'll get into the second part of the show here because it's gonna have a few different twists and turns. You already mentioned Ken Squier, and pretty much this whole second half of the show is going to be about Ken in one way or another, or at least be associated with him. But I'm going to start my Darf of the Week segment, and it's going to be related to Ken Squier. My favorite Twitter personality, Brett Griffin, decided to once again make a fucking ass out of himself.
This is the Darf of the year right here.
Yeah.
I don't really know how much stupider you can get, but for those who aren't aware, Ken Squier is originally from Vermont, and as is Bernie Sanders. And regardless of what you think of Bernie Sanders politically, this is not about that. This is about two guys who were cornerstones of Vermont who surely ran into each other over the years. And after Ken's death...
Oh, no question they ran into each other, yeah.
Yeah, no question. So after Ken's death, Bernie tweeted out just a nice little tribute to Ken, which, again... even if you want to look at this in the most cynical way possible of just a politician tweeting about someone, in his state, it was far more than that. But what Brett decided to do, and he tweeted this at probably 11:30 at night on, what was it, Friday or whatever, so guaranteed he was shit-faced.
Fireball club.
He decided to respond to this with, "Didn't know you knew what NASCAR is. Probably should have endorsed it before 80. So fuck him. Fuck anybody that still employs him or thinks he should be involved in NASCAR. This stupid motherfucker cannot help but make himself look bad at every single possible turn, and this is just a complete embarrassment. And
well, the funny thing about it is that Bernie actually has motorsports ties.
Yeah.
Again, like you said, Brien, regardless of what you think about him or the people who tend to associate with him or his politics or whatever the fuck it is, Bernie's been to the Milk Bowl. He's been to Thunder Road. He's sponsored cars there. He's pretty ingrained, and probably more so than most people in Congress. So anytime you have somebody of that stature, not just doing lip service, but specifically listing out the reasons why somebody involved in the short track world or the racing world was important, that's a net positive. That's a big fucking deal. And it was a very nice thing that Bernie said about Ken, for sure. Yeah. And it was just wildly inappropriate to say some shit like that.
Yeah. You've got this dumb motherfucker who I guarantee is going to try to vote for Trump again. What the fuck did Trump say about NASCAR a few years ago? Meanwhile, you've got Bernie Sanders again praising Ken. Ken not only had a role in NASCAR in America, but also in Vermont racing itself. Ken was a leader both on a community and a nationwide level. And no matter which politician it is, they should be celebrated by their community leaders, and that's what happened here.
Let me put it this way: we know Donald Trump has been to a racetrack, right? We know Bernie Sanders has been to a racetrack. Has Joe Biden been to a racetrack? How about that?
Pretty sure he has.
Probably has.
I'm pretty sure. Not to speak highly of Biden, but Biden is a car guy. I remember a few years ago.
That is true. He's a hot rod guy. Yeah.
Yeah. After he got out of
was a hot rod
the vice president office. There were some videos of him I get to drive my Mustang around again.
You can't drive when you're the president. You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, you can't do any of that shit.
You can't put him in a parking lot or something and let him do some.
No, it's part one of the rules of the job is that you're not allowed to be behind the wheel of a motor vehicle. It's fucking crazy. So
yeah,
you can get him a little go-kart or something.
It's just ripping donuts out in the White House lawn.
No, it's you just get to sit behind the wheel of the car and honk the horn like Trump did in the dump truck a few years ago. That's all you get to do.
But yeah, I agree. Bad fucking look, Brett. I wouldn't call myself a Brett Griffin defender by any means, but I give him a free pass on some of the dumbass stuff. There's a lot of people in my life I don't necessarily agree with, but whatever. It's part of life, and I'm not gonna let that ruin a relationship with somebody, or if they're doing good work, I'm not gonna let them that necessarily sink the whole ship for me. But this is just real fucking stupid.
His ship is down there with the Titanic, and he has nothing redeemable about him. So.
Yeah, it's kind of I'll probably still listen to DVC, but yeah, Jesus fucking Christ, man, that's just real stupid. So yeah, that's definitely pretty much up there with my definitely a candidate for DARF of the year, which I think that'll come a little closer to New Year's Eve. We'll probably get into that. I want to go back through and do the parade of DARFs, if you will.
Mm-hmm. So now that we're in the Ken section of the show, let's go back to the more positive.
Let's go back to class.
Yes. So this is one of those things that now it's been about a week now since Ken's passed, and if you've been on any sort of motorsports social media over the last week, you've surely seen the numerous tributes, and they're all warranted. I mean, Ken was in that same class as Chris Economaki, a guy that truly loved motorsports and did what he could to, transfer that love onto his audience, whether it be at his home track, that he ran in Vermont, Thunder Road, or being really the one that convinced CBS to broadcast NASCAR to a live audience and helped create what we all have today as fans. And
there's a direct line to Ken Squier from where we are now to the very beginning.
Yeah, 100%. And it really can't. There's not anybody else like him. There's not really going to be anybody else like him. And even when you look at the current crop of broadcasters, like, there aren't really got too many guys that, their whole lives are based on motorsports. And I think, like, there was almost a real changing of the guard in 2001 when CBS, stopped broadcasting the 500, and first thing you see on Fox is Chris Myers, a guy that all he was a broadcaster. He wasn't a racing guy. And you get the booth with DW and Larry Mack, and it took a little bit of the seriousness out of it, which, again, you don't necessarily need your motorsports play-by-play to be serious all the time, but there was just something that Ken Squier brought to the booth, especially for the 500 for all those years, that it'll never be seen or heard again, I don't think. And especially once Mike Joy's out of the booth, I mean, that'll be a
he's
sad
the
last one of the old guard.
That'll be a very sad day. I went back and watched the Southern 500, the first throwback weekend they did on NBC, and they brought Ken Squier and Ned Jarrett back into the booth, and just the temperature changes when he takes over the mic. It's like the new style broadcast versus the old school way of presenting a race, like in direct, in the same program. And it really is shocking. And I don't know, maybe it's just the fact that I grew up with that style, and I kind of pine for that. But I definitely remember watching that on TV originally, and just like in silence, just because I was so stoked that it was finally back.
Yeah. Now I lost my train of thought. So we did for the video of the week deal. Again, things like Squierisms and his great calls and all that. So many other people can do that in such a better way than we can as far as presenting that information to you. So what I wanted to do this week for video of the week was focus on what Ken did at home, and that was a video from Thunder Road. This was the 1987 ACT Coors Tour, the Milk Bowl, which was kind of a famous race that had been run there for many, many, many years.
Huge race to this day. And not only is it the track that Ken Squier owns and helped operate, it's the series that he created, the American Canadian Tour, which is some of the best racing you can see in New England to this day.
Yep. So this was a portion of an episode of Trackside, which I don't know if we've actually talked about Trackside yet. I feel like we might have watched an episode earlier, way earlier in the show. But Trackside was a northeast motorsports show that focused on short tracks all over. And again, if you didn't grow up in the Northeast, you might not be aware, but there's tons and tons of short track racing, whether it be dirt, asphalt, whatever. There's tons of it, and Trackside here, this is the farthest north you can get almost, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, like it's way the fuck up there, but there are racers and
tons of them. Yeah.
You see a packed house at the track this day, and they're there to watch the ACT Tour. The names you're going to recognize, Kevin LePage and Ricky Craven are in this race, and I guess Robbie Crouch also is kind of a recognizable name.
Yep.
But it's just highlights. They had kind of a wacky format where it was, I think one stage, the winners, they reverse the field and then they reverse them back after the second stage. It was a whole.
Don't get any ideas, NASCAR. Don't listen to this.
Kind of, one of your more standard, average, wacky short track programs, but it brought the fans out. Those late models are, such cool cars to look at. I guess this was late models, though, wasn't it? I mean, they weren't like North, Busch North size cars.
Yeah, they're late models for sure. Yeah.
So, I really wanted to highlight because, again, Ken was known on such a big, wide audience for so long. Again, he was the voice of NASCAR, but this was also such a big part of his life, and it's what got him to the dance.
It went so much further than just his NASCAR career, and the roots went so much deeper than just NASCAR. Like he put his money where his mouth is, all the way from the very, very bottom of the ladder all the way to the top. So,
for sure. And I'm sorry, I'm just pulling up my notes here. Ken's on this video at the very end. You get a brief little 2-minute interview with him. And you can just kind of see the look on his face, how excited he is to be there and how excited he is to be in front of such a big crowd, how proud he is that he's part of this. And, you know, he talks about how things weren't always like this and they had some rough years, and it's the best show in America for the price you pay. $2.50 to go in and watch that race. And, and I guess that was the entry fee for many, many years at the track. You know, Ken jokes about having to maybe raise it up a little bit at the very end, but
there's a
you
shit
could bring
ton.
your whole family in for $5.
Yeah.
Family package.
Shit ton of people there. It looked a lot like Pennsboro in the old videos did, with all the people sitting up on the hill and all that. You know,
For sure.
well beyond the grandstands. Just a true like grassroots event. You know, yeah. 250 helps though.
The race was won by a guy named John Paul Cabana, who he's interviewed a few times, and really thick French Canadian accent, which those are always very funny to hear, especially because you don't really hear him in stock car racing much.
Yeah.
And like I said, Kevin LePage and Ricky Craven are in this race. There's a guy named Paul Richardson who finishes, I think, second, who he looks like a fucking turkey or something. I don't even know what to describe him as, but he just doesn't. He looks like a weird human being. But again, just really that beat to shit old ass Northeast racer that's just still out there kicking ass. And
Yeah, straight
you
up.
can go to any short
Gobbling
track.
around.
You can go to any short track in the Northeast, and you're going to see a track full of guys still out there running that look just like him. So, I don't know. I love windows into the past like this. And again, knowing that this was Ken's heart and soul, which is kind of why I wanted to highlight this. And again, a couple other videos we'll talk about. I'd actually pulled up a very brief interview that Ken did with Dale Earnhardt in late '79 that I guess aired in the 1980 Daytona 500. Ken saw something in Earnhardt and wanted to interview him for the show, and it's funny to hear him predict, Dale himself predict he was going to win that year, and it took him another 20 years to do so. And then today, Rob, when we were talking, Ken was kind of in that same class as Chris Kanamaki, where, he was funny, he was poignant, but he also could kind of really summarize. He eulogizes Dale more or less in this moment. This was right after Dale passed. Fox did bring him in to kind of talk about the race and talk about Dale, and even in just a brief couple-minute passage, he so succinctly defines what Dale was to NASCAR itself and to motorsports in general.
Yeah.
And
that fucking quote that he leads off with, whatever stock car racing is, Dale was.
I mean, what else needs to be said? Like,
I got
what the fuck
chills
else?
saying it myself. It's incredible.
And there's really nobody else that's going to be able to do that these days. So that kind of just bookended a little bit of but Ken bookended Dale's life in that sense, which is interesting. But I don't really know what else to say about Ken. I'll let you guys say a few words before we go on to the next little thing we're going to talk about.
Which also includes Ken Squier, I believe.
It does.
And Chris Economaki. True Love, you got anything you want to say about Ken?
I mean, I don't know what to say that's not already been said. There's been so many great tributes all week, but I would recommend anyone going back and watching his NASCAR Hall of Fame induction speech. Is really good.
That's also really
he's
good.
He's a broadcaster. I think he's the only one or the first one that is fully inducted into the NASCAR Hall of Fame.
He's in there twice.
Yeah, he's got his own. He's got his own award too that they hand out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's Yeah, that really is a great video, and it's easy to find too. I would say that, or they maybe we'll post a link to the Dale Earnhardt sort of impromptu eulogy we were talking about. Impromptu might be the wrong word to describe that because it was definitely prepared, but you know, the day after it happened on I believe it was on ESPN. I'd recommend giving that a watch. Before we move on from the American Canadian Tour, though, just to talk about Ken's legacy. From that point of view, of course, Robbie Crouch, he was the all-time winner on the American Canadian Tour with 77 wins. And our boy Jean-Paul Cabana that you mentioned, he had 26 wins, so he's fifth on that list. But just a list of people that made it to the top level on here. Chuck Bound, Randy LaJoie. There's so many folks that made their way from New England into the NASCAR or Winston Cup or whatever you want to call it, sphere. There's a direct line to the American Canadian Tour. And that continues today. So, again, his legacy is going to continue to give long after he's gone. And I'm going to forgive, for now, the American Canadian Tour for denying my credential application at the beginning of the year in honor of Ken Squier. So.
That's a touching tribute to him.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll send this episode in, and maybe they'll change their mind.
I have a feeling they might not, but
I feel like they got a lot on their plate right now.
yeah,
So.
they do. But seriously, though, if you can watch an act race, though, if you have a chance to go in person and see it, it's a great show. They always put on a good show. It's some of the best fender racing you're going to see in the United States or in Canada. So.
And unfortunately, they couldn't go this year for a myriad of reasons, but SRX just announced they are going to be back at Thunder Road next year.
That's right.
To make up for the race they missed in 2023.
And that'll be a great show. There's no question about it.
For sure. But now on to the final part of the show, and I'm raring to go about this because, oh boy, do I have a lot to say. When we were talking about
what about Brien?
We were talking about videos of the week. Rob mentioned Stroke Race, and you know, Ken has a nice little cameo in there. It's very funny, and how we should just watch that as part of the show. And then went on to say that that's the real NASCAR movie is Stroke Race, and was better than Days of Thunder. And
what I said was Days of Thunder can kiss my ass.
Okay, well there you go. So that's how Rob feels about it. So I'll admit. Okay, so I've
Jerry Bruckheimer.
I've never seen Stroke Race in full. I remember having the DVD as a kid and maybe getting bored or something after the first 15, 20 minutes and never revisiting it. So I decided, all right, I told Rob those are fighting words, so now I'm going to have to watch this fucking movie.
Which, by the way, folks, it is on YouTube now.
Oh, yes,
in its entirety, free with ads.
Free, yeah. So
So once you finish up watching that, you can also watch Pure Country, which is another great movie that you'll want to watch for free. But
it's Stroke
got it
Race
all
is
right now.
it's in our video of the week playlist, so it's right there for you. But so I decided to watch this, and
He loved it, folks.
okay, so Rob, let me ask you first before I get in, because I got good things to say and some bad things to say. So before I get into my review, let's hear your defense of Stroke Race before we get into
my defense of Stroke Race. It's a fucking Burt Reynolds movie. What do you want?
Yeah, I mean, that's all you have to say.
It's gonna be a little rapey at times. It's gonna be, and that's it. It's a fucking Burt Reynolds movie. I don't know. I love how. With that said, I do love that it is the Burt Reynolds movie template of that era. It's just Burt being Burt, and NASCAR is prominently featured, but it's almost like he's kind of passing through NASCAR. Obviously, he's playing a driver and all that, and there's some corny bits and all that. It is what it is. It's a movie from the early '80s. You know, it's not fucking Amadeus. You know, like. But it's reverent and it's wacky all at the same time, without taking the piss out of NASCAR. I think a lot of people have a problem with Talladega Nights for it kind of portraying NASCAR to be sort of goofy, which, you know, I also disagree with that too. But if I had to sort of put this on the landscape, I would put Stroke Race somewhere between Days of Thunder and Talladega Nights. and what it accomplishes. And also its sort of commentary on the sponsorship end of things is really funny to me, especially in light of how things are now. But again, if you can suspend your disbelief for a little bit and how slow the cars go, the way they had to film them, because they really do look slow as fuck. But if you can put all that aside, it is a nice little window into Winston Cup and of that era. And of course, Dale Earnhardt's in the movie. Tim Richmond's in there a little bit. There's all sorts of little cameos. And it is genuinely funny.
If you like these like old campy 80s movies, then which I enjoy. So
Same, yeah.
All right, well, here we go. So
go ahead.
First off, you mentioned Burt
Linda
Reynolds.
Vaughn's in here too. Shout out to her.
Fuck yeah. Linda Vaughn is. Oh yeah, first like 2 or 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, well, there's plenty of women we'll get into.
It's one of the women he's trying to kiss, which is half the movie.
During driver intros.
That's right. So you mentioned Burt Reynolds being in this movie. Obviously, he's the star of the film, and the film itself has a
don't forget Jim Neighbors, buddy.
It's got Jim Neighbors. You've got the guy from Deliverance. His name is escaping me right now, but dude from Deliverance is in it. There's a bunch of different stars in it, but this movie actually was one of the things that tanked Burt's career. I read into this afterwards, and this was like,
of course
he'd already done a bunch of those Hal Needham movies.
Yeah.
Did we lose Rob?
No, I'm still here.
Oh. He'd already done a bunch of Hal Needham
Greatly
movies.
Offended.
And this was like almost the last straw. Like Burt himself thought this movie lost a bunch of fans for him. And I can completely see why, because
it's just that one scene.
No, it's not just the one scene. So here's what I'll say positive about the movie before I get into the real bad parts. Again, it does portray NASCAR in a positive light. It is very of its time. This is a film. It came out in 1983. There's again lots of great driver cameos. Ken Squier's cameo, very funny. Chris Economaki doing exact Chris Economaki things, perfect.
Yeah.
The on-track scenes are definitely pretty wacky. Again, the cars are very slow, and then the actual race footage that they cut in and out is like not even of all the same class of cars.
Very lazy. It's also very made for TV movie feeling, like stock footage kind of.
They really did not put that much effort into that portion of the film, but whatever. Again, it compared. I do think Talladega Nights is punching down, not too hard, but hard enough. Even in my lapsed fandom when that movie came out, I could still kind of tell it was kind of poking fun at NASCAR in a way that I didn't totally love. And it's a movie that I do want to at some point revisit, because I don't think I watched it since it came out. But
it's fucking funny. I can.
It's
still funny.
I'm sure it is. But this movie, it's kind of.
We had some Talladega Nights news in NASCAR this week.
Oh yeah, that's right. Kevin Harvick bought the house. Great.
He did. He bought Ricky Bobby's house, his McMansion.
It's the only NASCAR off-season news so far, folks.
Well, that and Mike Harmon's team is back to Mike Harmon Racing. So
I didn't even realize that he had merged with somebody, but I guess that didn't go too well. And now it's just Mike and the boys again. So
his announcement too was just all pissy, like, this guy screwed me over. We're going back to Mike Harmon. It's great.
Fuck yeah.
But anyways, back to this fucking movie.
Anyways.
This fucking movie. So, again, all of the era stuff, all of the ephemera type stuff, was all very fun. And again, one thing that came out of this movie that was positive was the Hal and Burt team with Harry Gant. Like, that actually was born from this movie, which is pretty wild to think about. Yeah. Real quick, I just got to cut in here. If you guys have seen Stroker Ace, or if you haven't, if you decide to watch it after this, I recommend listening to or watching the Dale Jr. Download episode with Will Cronkite, who set up all the cars. Mm-hmm. He's got some really funny stories about production and hanging out with Burt Reynolds and how they got it done and the origin of those cars, and some really interesting stuff in there. Definitely that guy's interesting as fuck anyway, but I would definitely recommend listening to that episode if you have any interest in this movie, because it adds some additional insight. So
yeah. Okay, so I
on with the hatred.
I feel like that ends my positive things to say about this movie.
That's it?
No, that's pretty much it. I don't really have much else good to say about it. So, here's where it gets bad. And before we get to the bad scene, I'm going to actually just break down the actual movie itself and how it's not that good. And here's why. So, Burt himself...
Well, it's a Burt Reynolds movie. What do you...
Well, so Burt's character... Okay, so Stroker Ace... The character Stroker Ace himself is kind of a dipshit, and he's kind of got a bad attitude. Like, I don't think he understands how sponsorship works. He has cantankerous relationships with both the chicken guy and this oil sponsor that he has at the beginning of the fucking race, and, like, fills his sponsor's car with cement. And, again, who the fuck... Like, these relationships, you know... We're not like this. Like,
Brien, this is not a documentary.
Yeah.
I know it's not a documentary, but these things didn't happen. Like, these relationships were not had with sponsors. Like,
well, truck drivers didn't drive around with fucking monkeys either, but they made a movie about that shit. So.
Listen, motherfucker. From a plot standpoint, it makes no fucking sense, okay? It doesn't make fucking sense, because how the fuck can you drive a car without a sponsor? He loses his sponsor and immediately signs up for this
Ask
chicken
Mike
guy,
Harmon. I don't know. Fuck.
This chicken guy, he owns a chicken company and just shows up to the track with this cheated up car and like, here, bud, get in. And Stroker just signs the contract, doesn't even give a shit about it. Gets in this car.
It's because he's just chasing tail. That's what it is.
I know he's chasing tail,
That's
but
all he wants.
then the movie ends up becoming this convoluted plot to, like, get out of his contract, and it's like, that's what we're cheering for, is the guy to get out of his fucking contract. Like, that's the whole plot.
Yeah, woo.
No, it's fucking stupid.
Contract.
And then he like
should have asked Kyle Larson how to do that.
Oh.
Well,
It's the 80s. I don't know. Maybe.
Burt almost did something in this movie that would have gotten out of his contract, but we'll get into that. So, oh, fuck. Now, at the end of this movie, Burt, you know, Stroker fucking convinces his dad and then his, like, ambiguously gay brother. I think that's what's going on with the brother. I can't tell if his brother is slow or gay or what. Something is going on with the brother that's just off.
Brien.
And that's probably going to get me
Jesus.
canceled. But, like, something is going on with this brother.
Brien tries to cancel Stroker Ace and
cancels myself. Again, I don't know what the fuck's going on with this brother, but something is off with the brother.
Yeah,
and
the chicken man is named Clyde Torkel, by the way, folks. We do know that.
Yeah.
Ned Beatty is his name.
there we
So
go.
again, the plot of the movie being this convoluted story, and you know, the race has to end at a certain fucking time or he's gonna stay in his contract, but then the race goes overtime and he wins. It doesn't make any fucking sense to me, okay? It's not a cut and dry story as to why we should be cheering for Stroker Ace. So that right there is my first complaint. Now my second complaint, and here's the big one. I did kind of wonder how this movie, you know, again, it has all these stars in it and it's got all these drivers in it, and it's should be this cool time capsule, regardless if it's a good movie or not. But there's a major reason why it is not revered, and that's because a prime plot twist is about date rape. Okay, so Lonnie Anderson, who I think was actually dating Burt Reynolds when this movie was being filmed. I don't know exactly, but you know they were married at some point. The chicken company owner hires on Lonnie Anderson to be the marketing person, and of course, again, Burt tries to sleep with her. Yep. Now,
That's what he does.
it is discussed that she is this nice Christian woman and like a Bible school teacher, and like she's a virgin. The fact she's a virgin is brought up. Now, I will say this: she was 37 when this movie was filmed, so that is a wild tidbit that I had to look up. I just blew my mind when I
37, like in actuality or in the
no,
in
in
the
actuality,
movie itself?
in real life, she was 37.
I don't remember there a part of Stroker Ace being like, "I'm 37."
Yeah.
7-year-old virgin.
So once this is found out, Stroker tries to figure out how to sleep with the assistant, and he does this by.
So that's just to be clear, that's the plot of the movie. That's it. Like, that's all there's no thought involved. Stroker Ace is trying to sleep with this PR girl. That's the movie.
So he does this by switching out alcohol. Like he pretends to give her like, you know, sparkling cider, but it's actually champagne. Gets her drunk. She is the least convincing drunk I've ever seen. Like she literally just, her voice doesn't change. Nothing changes. She's just like, I'm ready to fuck you now, Bert, was more or less what she says. And then she immediately passes out. And what does Bert do? Instead of just leaving the fucking room like any good actual human being would do in that situation, like he slowly, like he's like, should I do this? Like nobody will know. Goes back and forth, slowly starts to undress her, and then he's like, nobody would know, would they? And then the scene ends, and then you're kind of left with like, did he do it or not? Like, you know, you don't. It seems like he's not gonna. But he still keeps going back to her and touching her and stuff, so it gets real fucking weird. And then the next day, you know, Lonnie's character is asking him at breakfast, and all of a sudden he's a good guy now because he may or may not have actually not date raped her. Like, nobody fucking knows. Like, the way the scene was shot, the way he even explained what happened to her the next day at breakfast, it was very ambiguous. So even if he did the quote-unquote good guy thing and didn't date rape her, it was too close to fucking lie to me.
So what you're saying to me is that you want the definitive answer. You would have liked to have seen one way or the other play out here and bring this to an R rating is what you're telling me. And Brien quit, but yeah, it's a little, I'll give him that. It's a little
yeah, that scene's super cringy.
Yeah.
It's hard to sit through.
I honestly forgot about that part. I thought he was going to talk about the part where Clyde Torkelson tries to rape her. You remember that?
Yeah.
Mere moments later.
Yeah.
But he gets his. He gets kicked in the nuts, and that's the whole thing.
Right. And Bert ends up with the lady at the end, so
Yeah, he does.
it's
yeah.
all.
And he gives her a
one big
job,
happy
too.
family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It all works out, and Stroker wins the championship. And a great fucking Charlie Daniels song, too.
That song is so fucking good.
It really is.
People want to shit on it for some reason, but I love that song.
Yeah, well, people love to shit on Charlie Daniels. And
People want to shit on that song because it's just like the fucking Eastbound and Down, more or less, just about NASCAR instead of trucks.
which is sick.
Which is awesome.
What's wrong with
Great
that?
fucking song.
Yeah. Charlie Daniels had a couple lanes, and Brian's gone again. He just popped back in to talk shit about Charlie Daniels.
Wow.
Oh, man.
So, I don't know. I don't know how much more angry I can be about this, but again, this whole plot twist is very clearly why this movie will never be regarded in any, you know. It's not going to be one of the greatest NASCAR movies of all time. It just never will be, and it's date rape, unfortunately, was a trope that was in a bunch of different 80s movies, ones that were way more popular than this one. So, but
Yeah, it was.
they're way.
While you were away, by the way, I agreed with you that was a little bit over the line there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are definitely movies that handled that way worse than Stroker Race did. But
So yeah, so that's why Stroker Race is not a good movie. And say what you will about Days of Thunder, say what you will about Talladega Nights, they're both substantially better. And for the handful of things I enjoyed about this movie, it is so bad in every other way that, like, yeah, I'm good. I don't ever need to watch this again. Sorry. So
My favorite racing movie is The Last American Hero.
Oh,
with
yeah,
Jeff Bridges.
that's right.
In 1973.
that is on my list of movies I need to see.
is that one on
And
YouTube? Maybe we'll just do this in the off season. We'll just watch movies and talk shit about it.
It's free somewhere. It's on there.
Yeah, well, I'm fine with that because there's only so many old races we can watch.
I've never actually seen that entire film, so I would like to watch that. So
Yeah.
We'll put it on the list.
So,
still, my rebuttal again. It's a Burt Reynolds movie from the '80s. I don't know what we
That's
expect.
really
from that.
all you have to say.
Hal Needham at the sort of like wane of the career. It's got all the tropes. You're right. Like traditionally speaking, it's not very good, but for what it is, and to see Dale Earnhardt talk shit and just the little bits and pieces from the NASCAR world, it is required viewing, I think. even if it is a little bit corn pone and kind of a very of the times kind of dog shit movie.
I would say,
and I want to see somebody throw back to the an Archicard did this already, so I forget. I think it was Mullins, the Mullins racing team. They did this, but I want to see someone do the plucked chicken scheme for Darlington one of these days. Everyone always wants to do the cool chicken pit car, but nobody wants to do the fucking plucked chicken with the chicken suit. So I'd like to see that next year. Corey LaJoy.
I was gonna say he already did.
He would.
And he would. That's the best part.
I would say, listen.
I've had enough of his plucked chicken already.
Watch this movie. Watch this movie until Elvira shows up. Once Elvira shows up, that's it. Just turn it off. You don't need to watch anything else. That's when it starts to get rapey and starts to get convoluted.
The bar scene is so good, man. Burt Reynolds crawling around on the floor and all that. So. But seriously, it's on YouTube. You can watch it for free. The only thing you'll have to pay is a couple hours of time. I don't even know if it's that long. It's a pretty short movie.
It's not that long. I've watched the entire thing while we've been sitting here.
Yeah. Favorite quote of the entire movie though is when Burt Reynolds is crawling around on the floor and a lady steps out of the ladies' room and he's under her dress because Burt Reynolds, and she says, "I don't know what you're shopping for, cowboy, but you're looking in the wrong place." And that pretty much sums up every woman in that movie. So.
Oh, there were a couple quotes that I did want to mention. There was a scene where they're all getting in a car parked on the street, and Bert's he's in the chicken suit and he has to get in the back seat, and there's two people walking by, and it's definitely one of those just throwaway jokes that they say they must be in a cult. I thought that was very funny. It was said by people off screen. There's another point where, and again, this is referring to Lonnie Anderson being a virgin, and how I forget what other analogies he was using, but it was basically you don't keep a horse like that in the barn when there's a race to be won or some bullshit. And he uses O.J. Simpson as one of the examles of you don't keep O.J. If you have O.J. Simpson on the team, you don't keep him on the bench.
Yeah.
And then my final my final quote that I loved was after he wins the final race and flips the car. He's getting out of the car and they're trying to get into victory lane. He just goes, "Get that piece of shit out of here." And he's saying that to his own car. So I really like that. That got me. So there were a couple okay things in this movie.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I laughed more than I expected to on rewatch, that's for sure. True Love, any closing thoughts on Stroke Race?
Yes.
I think that's enough Stroke Race for this year.
Jesus Christ.
I think we've said it all.
Yeah. It's yeah. All right. Well. So.
You guys got any big Thanksgiving plans? You gonna talk about Stroke Race at the table with your family?
Yeah.
I'm gonna be probably eating dinner with my neighbors, so I can't say I'll be bringing up Stroke Race at the dinner table.
Yeah. Well, I think I will be. That's for sure.
I guess I'm assuming we'll probably do an episode next week.
Oh yeah, I don't see why not. There is racing happening coming up here. There's more USAC action in California. The Turkey Night Grand Prix is in Ventura on Friday. That's on Flow Racing if you got an account. So that's always fun.
For next week,
you make every time you mention it on the show.
I don't know. Dillner hasn't sent me a check yet, so.
For next week, the video of the week, we're going to return to the monster trucks finally. I know we talked about that a few weeks ago, but then I was unable to talk for a little bit. We're going to pick up the history of monster truck racing, and we're going to be continuing to look at the TNT series. We're going to look at their 1988 St. Paul, Minnesota event, which I'll get into on the next episode, but this is really when racing starts to ratchet up a little bit, and we'll get into that next week. What other things do we have to talk about? I'll mention this real quick. I probably should have mentioned this with the short track roundup, or short track toilet bowl. What do we call your fucking segment?
The septic tank.
Which the toilet bowl leads to the septic tank. So.
It does, yeah. It all goes to the same place. Brien.
Oh, did he quit?
Yeah. He's like, you know what? Fuck you.
Okay.
It's not a
He
plumbing
flushed himself
podcast.
down the toilet bowl.
I gotta say though, a little bit of short track racing coming up in the near future, but what I'm most excited about is go ahead.
I had to flush my microphone real quick.
Nice.
I just purchased my ticket to the first ever Dirt Roundtable at the Dirt Motorsports Hall of Fame. It's going to be going on.
Oh, you're going? You actually going?
Yes, I'm going. Yeah, it's going to be on the Patriots holiday, January 6th.
Fuck yeah.
My favorite, Kenny Tremont, along with Billy Decker, Tim Fuller, and Gary Tompkins are all going to be doing a roundtable discussion. It's the first time they've ever done anything like this at the Hall of Fame. It's $25 to get in, and you get dinner with it. So if you're anywhere near Weed Sport on January 6th, come hang out. That will be a good time. I think they only have 100 tickets available, so check out the Hall of Fame on Facebook, whatever, for the phone number, and give those guys a shout.
That's very
Now,
cool.
are you gonna rent a tuxedo for this? Are you gonna iron?
Oh, no.
Dale Earnhardt
This is-
khakis. What do we do?
This is, yeah. Well, I don't have any Dale Earnhardt khakis, unfortunately.
You would have been the source had you have bought them.
This Hall of Fame is let's just say it's not going to be a black tie affair, so I'm not too concerned about dressing up for it.
Damn. How dare you disrespect Ken Tremont like that?
You could wear like a bow tie with your.
Well, he's
vintage
already
t-shirt.
been in the hall. He's already been in the hall for a while, so this isn't an induction. This is just
Yeah,
guys sitting around talking shit. So
Oh yeah.
you know, real dirt modified nerd stuff. So check it out.
Sitting around eating pigs in a blanket.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of dirt modifieds, there is one thing I forgot to mention on the episode last week that I want to bring up real quick. Kyle Larson, not a guest on this show. Kyle Armstrong, former guest of the show, friend of the program. He was quite upset that I didn't mention this when we were talking about the World Finals at Charlotte.
Uh-oh.
There is a dirt late model driver, or excuse me, a dirt modified driver from Connecticut whose name is Kyle Armstrong, who was racing in the World Finals. Now, none of us know him, never met him before, but Kyle just sort of started his own campaign to sort of, get people to root for him. He's like, this, my name's out there in the timing and scoring. You better look at me go, that sort of shit, I'm buying some T-shirts from this motherfucker. And
how did he do in the race?
Not so great, but this guy completely sold out of merchandise from all the Carolina Kyle Armstrong fans. He's a super nice guy. It was cool to see him out there.
That's awesome.
But yeah, the Connecticut Kyle Armstrong needs to bring more T-shirts down to Carolina next time he comes to play because he will sell out. So.
Nice.
Also, I bought a T-shirt from Tyler Carpenter's kid, and she cussed at me, so that was pretty funny. It's another little tidbit I forgot. I asked for a particular shirt in the wall, and in my size, you got that an XL? And she goes, hell no! And I'm like, Jesus! So, yeah. Tyler Carpenter, who will be at the Dome at Gateway coming up pretty soon. I'm very excited for that.
15 kids. They gotta earn their keep.
They're all working the trailer. You can meet them all.
Well, I guess that's going to wrap up our trip to Applebee's this week.
Yeah, I gotta say, I hated having a week off. I missed you guys. It was. I know the Applebee's was closed for repairs last week. They were, they were declogging the septic system. Had that big old backup coming out of the toilets last week, so had to get that fixed up. And then, of course, now Brian's nose is 3 inches longer than it was previously. You should see the photos. It's quite beautiful.
It's got extra intake now. Got
great.
more horsepower.
Yeah. Supercharger.
Yep. And with that, you can always follow us on Instagram at Meet Me at Applebee's, on Twitter at Meet Me at the Bees. I am Speedway Screens and all the things, and speedwaytsj.etsy.com. There will be all sorts of sales and shit going on for Black Friday and
Christmas is
Cyber
coming
Monday
up,
and
motherfuckers.
all that nonsense. So yeah, buy some stuff so I can pay my debt off and go to my races next year. And with that, Ashley, what are you selling this week?
Just nothing.
Wow.
You can. It's not a damn thing.
Wait a second. We skipped
Still
the.
Snake Mountain _ True Love though.
Speaking of you, we skipped the whole deal. Didn't you go see Chase Elliott at a fucking Napa Auto Parts store?
Yes.
That's what I've been doing with my off season is going to grand openings of Napa Auto Parts stores.
Yeah, okay, we didn't
to see Chase Elliott.
Like a freelance Linda Vaughn kind of deal.
The Linda Vaughn of Dawsonville, Dawson County.
So, but you did do that, right?
I did. They only handed out 200 tickets to get an autograph, and apparently people had camped out since the day before. So I didn't get in line to get an autograph because I don't care about autographs, but it was packed, and he had his little arm in a sling because he just had shoulder surgery a couple days before. So yep, all of Dawsonville came out to get a gander.
Their favorite boy.
Local boy.
Yeah, special Dawsonville.
Did you go by the pool room while you were there?
No, I didn't, because they were doing like a Christmas parade on that end of Dawsonville, and I didn't want to get involved in that. I can only do so many Dawsonville things.
You can only see a fire truck roll up the street slowly, covered in Christmas lights once a day.
But there were no DARFs with shopping carts full of die-casts because they were very strict about one autograph per person. Because, I mean, the man just got out of shoulder surgery, so.
Yeah. His shoulder's only worth about 200 autographs.
I think that might be how he injured it to begin with.
Yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
Didn't you say you went to some underwater track or something too?
Oh yeah, I went to so I live close to Lake Lanier, which is a man-made lake, and when they built that lake, they just buried everything under it.
Is it like Lanier Speedway?
No, there is Lanier Speedway, but there's Lanier Lake Lanier too, and so. When the water levels get super low, you can see the top of the concrete grandstands that are sticking out from the speedway that was buried under the lake. It's called Gainesville Speedway.
No shit.
Yeah, so they built that track in like 1948, and then the area was flooded in 1956, and they just left everything under there, like the concrete grandstands. There's apparently like a concession stand under there, the scoring pylons under there. But the lake had got low enough where I went and you could see the very top, like 2 rows sticking out. So that was cool.
Holy shit. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Could you get pictures of that, or was it just like too hard to?
No, I got some pictures. I'll share them.
I would love to see that. That's incredible.
Yeah, back in 2007, we had a severe drought, and you could see the entire grandstands, and you could go to the very bottom of the grandstands, and there was like a engine block halfway buried in the mud too that had been buried there since the late 50s. So
no shit.
Yeah, there's a lot of history of that track. Like Tim Flock and his brothers raced there, Curtis Turner raced there, Sarah Christian won a race there, who was the first female driver in NASCAR ever. So
fuck,
it's just sitting there buried under the lake.
We got to do something about that. We got to do a broader episode. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that. So
yeah, so Gainesville Speedway, or it was also called Looper Speedway because of the owner's last name. So.
Nice. That's the best plug you've ever given, and you still haven't handed your Instagram handle out. So.
Snake Mountain _ True Love, damn it.
Man, that's so cool. Seriously, I would love to talk about that more. That's fucking incredible.
Yeah.
Rob Motes _ unofficial is
pictures.
mine. There's nothing going on in my life right now. That's not true. I've been doing some little video things about short track racing on my Instagram, talking shit about DARFs and all that. So that's been fun. So if you like that, you can come see me there, or just our page that usually ends up there too. And yeah, my band, These Wild Plains, not doing a whole lot of anything until next year. So yeah, I don't have anything to sell other than my positive demeanor and my love of stroke race.
Your Burt Reynolds fandom.
Burt Reynolds' worst movie. That's what I got to offer you.
And it's still great.
All right, folks. Well, if I'm not totally canceled, then we'll be back next week. So talk to you next time.
Bye.